Jake had only $12 left. His daughter Emma didn't know they would lose their home next week. Then one night, bad men came to the diner. Jake jumped in front of a bullet to save a pregnant waitress. He didn't know she was a rich man's daughter. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The morning alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., but Jake Martinez was already awake. He had been staring at the ceiling for the past hour, calculating and recalculating their monthly budget. After paying rent, utilities and buying groceries, they would have exactly $12 left. $12 to last until his next paycheck in 2 weeks. "Daddy?" came a small voice from the doorway. Jake quickly wiped his eyes and turned to see his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, clutching her worn teddy bear. Her dark hair was messy from sleep, and her big brown eyes looked concerned. "Hey, princess. Did you have a bad dream again?" Emma nodded and climbed into bed beside him. "I dreamed that we had to move away again. You were crying." Jake's heart broke a little more. They had moved 3 times in 2 years, always one step ahead of eviction notices. Emma was too young to understand their financial struggles, but she felt the stress that hung over their small apartment like a dark cloud. "We're not going anywhere, sweetheart. Daddy promises." He kissed the top of her head, hoping he could keep that promise. Jake worked 2 jobs to support them. During the day he was a mechanic at Tony's auto shop, his hands always stained with grease and oil. At night he worked security at a local warehouse. Between both jobs he barely saw Emma except for breakfast and bedtime stories. His sister Maria watched Emma during the day, but Jake knew he was already asking too much of her. After getting Emma ready for school, Jake dropped her off at Maria's house. His sister was waiting on the porch, her own 3 children running around the yard. "You look terrible," Maria said, giving him a concerned look. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "Sleep is a luxury I can't afford right now." Jake tried to smile, but it came out tired and forced. "Jake, you can't keep this up. You're going to collapse." "I'm fine. I have to be fine." He hugged Emma goodbye and headed to work, ignoring the worry in his sister's eyes. At the auto shop, Jake threw himself into his work. Cars didn't judge him for wearing the same shirt 3 days in a row or for eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day. Cars just needed fixing, and fixing things was something Jake could do well. "Hey Martinez," called Tony, the shop owner. "Good job on the Henderson's car yesterday. They specifically asked for you to work on their other vehicle." Jake felt a small surge of pride. Recognition for his work meant everything when he felt like he was failing at everything else. As the day wore on, Jake's mind wandered to Emma. She had been asking for new school supplies and her shoes were getting too small. Other kids at school had noticed her worn clothes, and Jake had seen the hurt in her eyes when she tried to hide it from him. That evening, Jake arrived at Rosie's diner for his security rounds. The diner stayed open 24 hours, and Jake's job was to make sure everything was secure during the late shift. It wasn't much, but it paid enough to keep the lights on. The diner was nearly empty except for a few truck drivers and one waitress working the night shift. Jake had seen her before, a young woman named Sarah who always had a kind word for everyone. Tonight she looked different. There was a glow about her, and she kept rubbing her stomach with a gentle smile. "Congratulations," Jake said when she brought him a cup of coffee. Sarah's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "My sister had the same look when she was expecting." "How far along?" 3 months. "It's my first." Her smile was radiant, but Jake noticed something else in her eyes, worry, maybe fear. "That's wonderful. Your husband must be thrilled." Sarah's smile faltered. "There's no husband. Just me and..." She gestured to her stomach. "But we'll be okay. We have to be." Jake understood that determination. It was the same fierce resolve he felt every morning when he looked at Emma sleeping peacefully, trusting that her daddy would take care of everything. 3 weeks later, Jake's worst fears were becoming reality. The landlord had served them with an eviction notice. They had 1 week to pay 3 months of back rent or find somewhere else to live. Jake sat at their small kitchen table, surrounded by bills and rejection letters from loan companies. He had applied everywhere, but his credit was destroyed from the medical bills after Emma's mother died in a car accident 2 years ago. Emma was coloring at the table, humming softly to herself. She had no idea that their world was about to fall apart again. "Daddy, are you sad?" Emma asked, looking up from her drawing. "No, baby. Daddy's just thinking. About work. Something like that." Jake forced a smile. "What are you drawing?" "It's our family. See. There's you and there's me and there's Mommy watching us from heaven." She pointed to a figure with wings floating above 2 stick figures holding hands. Jake's throat tightened. Emma rarely talked about her mother anymore, but she never forgot her. In the drawing, the daddy figure was much bigger than the little girl, his arms stretched wide as if trying to protect her from the whole world. "It's beautiful, princess." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Jake made a decision that went against every instinct he had. He called his ex-boss from his previous job, a man named Rick Torino who ran several businesses around the city, not all of them legal. Well, Jake Martinez. Heard you've fallen on hard times. Rick, I need work. Real work. The kind that pays well. You always were too good for that kind of work, Martinez. What changed? Jake looked toward Emma's bedroom. Everything. Meet me tomorrow night. Rosie's Diner. We'll talk. Jake hung up the phone, hating himself already. But Emma needed a roof over her head, and he would do anything, absolutely anything, to give her that. "Thank God," she whispered. "Jake, you scared us to death." "Emma?" His voice came out as a croak. "She's fine. She's with the kids at home." "Jake, what happened?" "The police said you saved someone's life." Memories came flooding back. The diner. The gunman. Sarah with a gun to her head. Jake tried to sit up, but pain shot through his chest. "Easy," said a voice from the doorway. A doctor entered, followed by a police officer. "Mr. Martinez, I'm Dr. Stevens. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. The bullet missed your heart by inches, but it did significant damage. You're lucky to be alive." "The waitress, Sarah. Is she okay?" The police officer, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "She's fine thanks to you. She wanted to be here when you woke up, but we thought family should see you first." "What happened to the gunman?" "All arrested. Turns out they were after Rick Torino for stealing money from their organization. Torino's been wanted for months. Your actions not only saved the waitress but helped us capture some very dangerous people." Over the next few days, Jake learned the full story. Sarah had managed to call 911 from the kitchen, and the quick response had led to the arrest of everyone involved. Rick Torino was going to prison for a very long time. But Jake's heroic act had come with consequences. The medical bills were enormous. He couldn't work for at least 2 months while he recovered. Their eviction had been temporarily delayed, but the money problems weren't going away. Sarah visited every day, bringing flowers and updates on her pregnancy. "The baby's fine," she assured him. "We're both fine because of you. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You did what a hero does. You put someone else's life before your own." News of Jake's heroic act had spread through their small community. The local newspaper ran a story about the single father who took a bullet to save a pregnant stranger. Donations started trickling in, a few dollars here, $20 there. It was touching but not nearly enough to solve their financial crisis. Jake was scheduled to be released in 3 days when everything changed again. Jake was doing physical therapy exercises when Maria burst into his hospital room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Jake, you need to see this. There's a man downstairs asking for you. He says he's here about the diner incident." "Another police officer?" "No. Jake, this man arrived in a limousine. He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than my car." Jake frowned. "I don't know anyone like that." He said his name is William Harrison. "He wants to speak with you privately." The name meant nothing to Jake, but something about Maria's expression made him curious. 20 minutes later, a man in an impeccably tailored suit entered Jake's room. He was probably in his 60s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Despite his expensive appearance, there was something warm about his face. "Mr. Martinez, I'm William Harrison. I hope you don't mind the intrusion." Jake studied the man. "Should I know you?" "No reason you should. I'm what people call a businessman. I own several companies, make investments, that sort of thing." William pulled a chair close to Jake's bed and sat down. "I'm here because of what you did at Rosie's Diner." "I don't understand." William was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. "Mr. Martinez, do you have any idea who Sarah Collins is?" Jake was confused. "She's a waitress. A good person who didn't deserve what happened to her. Sarah Collins is my daughter." The room fell silent. Jake stared at the older man, trying to process this information. "Your daughter works as a waitress?" William's expression grew sad. "We had a falling out 2 years ago. Sarah's was stubborn, independent. She wanted to make her own way in the world without her father's money. We said things to each other that we both regretted and she left. I hired private investigators to keep track of her, to make sure she was safe, but I respected her wishes to be left alone. But the pregnancy changed everything. When she found out she was expecting, she tried to contact me. But I was traveling, and by the time I got her messages, she had decided she was better off on her own. Too proud to ask for help from the father who had let her down. William leaned forward. Mr. Martinez, Sarah doesn't know I'm here. She doesn't know I've been keeping track of her. But when I heard what happened at the diner, when I learned that a complete stranger risked his life to save my daughter and my grandchild, I had to meet you. Jake didn't know what to say. The man sitting beside him was clearly wealthy beyond imagination, but the pain in his eyes was something Jake recognized. The fear of losing someone you love. Mr. Martinez, may I ask you something? Sure. You have a daughter. If someone saved her life, if someone took a bullet meant for her, what would that mean to you? Jake thought of Emma, of his fierce love for her, of how he would move mountains to keep her safe. Everything. It would mean everything. Exactly. William reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I've done some research on you, Mr. Martinez. I know about your financial situation. I know about the medical bills from your wife's accident, the eviction notice, the fact that you worked 2 jobs just to survive. Mr. Harrison, I didn't save Sarah for money. I don't want your charity. This isn't charity. This is gratitude. This is one father thanking another for saving his child's life. William placed the envelope on Jake's bedside table. Inside that envelope is the deed to a house. A real house with 4 bedrooms and a big backyard. It's in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. There's also information about a trust fund that will ensure your daughter's college education is completely paid for. Jake's hands were shaking. Mr. Harrison, I can't accept this. There's more. I own several automotive businesses. I'm offering you a job as a manager at one of my shops. The salary is more than you've ever made, with full benefits and reasonable hours. You'd be home for dinner with your daughter every night. This is too much. I can't. Mr. Martinez, 3 days ago, my daughter called me for the first time in 2 years. She was crying, but for the first time in months, they were tears of gratitude, not despair. She told me about a man who didn't even know her name but was willing to die for her. She told me about someone who showed her that there are still good people in the world, people who protect the innocent just because it's right. William's voice grew thick with emotion. Do you know what she said to me? She said, Dad, if there are people like Jake Martinez in the world, maybe it's safe to hope again. Maybe it's safe to come home. Jake felt tears running down his face. She said that. My daughter is moving back home, Mr. Martinez. She's going to let me help her raise my grandchild. We're going to be a family again because you showed her that heroes still exist. How do you put a price on that? 2 weeks later, Jake stood in the doorway of a beautiful 4-bedroom house, watching Emma run through rooms that were bigger than their entire apartment. Her laughter echoed through the halls, and for the first time in years, Jake felt like he could breathe. Daddy? There's a tree in the backyard with a swing. Can I try it? Of course, princess. Just be careful. Jake walked through the house, still unable to believe it was real. The kitchen was spacious and bright, with new appliances and plenty of room for family dinners. Emma's new bedroom was painted soft pink, with built-in bookshelves and a window seat where she could read. But the room that meant the most to Jake was his home office. William Harrison had insisted on it, a quiet place where Jake could pay bills without stress, help Emma with homework, or just sit and read without worrying about eviction notices. There was a knock at the front door. Jake opened it to find Sarah Collins standing on his porch, holding a casserole dish and looking nervous. Sarah, come in. How are you feeling? Good. Really good. She rubbed her belly, which had grown noticeably in the past few weeks. I brought you dinner. I figured with the move and everything. That's very thoughtful. Emma, come meet Miss Sarah. Emma appeared from the backyard, her cheeks flushed from playing. She stared at Sarah with curious eyes. You're the lady my daddy saved, Emma said matter-of-factly. Sarah knelt down to Emma's level. That's right. Your daddy is a hero. Did you know that? I've always known that, Emma replied seriously. He saves me every day. Jake's throat tightened. Sometimes children saw truth more clearly than adults. Over dinner, Sarah shared her news. She had reconciled with her father and was living with him while she prepared for the baby. She was taking business classes and planning to help manage one of her father's charitable foundations. I want to help people, she explained. People like your daddy who do good things just because it's right. What kind of help? Jake asked. We're starting a foundation for single parents. Emergency financial assistance, job training, childcare support. Your story inspired it, actually. Emma was listening intently. Miss Sarah, when your baby comes, will you bring them to play with me? I'd love that, Emma. I think you're going to be a wonderful big sister figure. After Sarah left, Jake tucked Emma into her new bed. The room was everything a little girl could dream of, but Emma seemed more interested in talking than sleeping. Daddy, why did you save Miss Sarah? Jake thought about how to explain it in a way Emma could understand. Sometimes, princess, we have to help people even when it's scary or hard. It's just the right thing to do. Because that's what heroes do. Heroes aren't special people, Emma. They're ordinary people who choose to do the right thing when it matters most. Emma was quiet for a moment. Daddy, if someone needed help and I was scared, would you still want me to help them? I'd want you to be smart about it and stay safe. But yes, if someone really needed help and you could help them, I'd be proud of you for trying. Good. Because I want to be like you when I grow up. Jake kissed her forehead. You're already better than me, princess. You're already perfect. 6 months later, Jake's life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. His new job managing Harrison Automotive's flagship location was challenging but rewarding. He worked with honest people who respected his skills and dedication. More importantly, he was home every evening to help Emma with homework and read bedtime stories. Emma was thriving too. Her new school was excellent, and she had made friends easily. She was taking piano lessons and had joined the school's art club. But the biggest change in Emma was her confidence. She no longer flinched when other children talked about their families or worried about having enough food or losing their home. Jake had also grown closer to Sarah and her father. William Harrison had become an unexpected friend and mentor. Despite his wealth and success, William was down to earth and genuinely caring. He often joined Jake and Emma for Sunday dinners, and Jake had begun to think of him as the father figure he'd never had. Sarah had given birth to a beautiful baby boy named David. Emma was completely smitten with baby David, and appointed herself his unofficial big sister and protector. Watching Emma gently hold the baby, Jake often thought about the chain of events that had led them here. One moment of courage had changed so many lives. The foundation Sarah had started was making a real difference in their community. They had helped dozens of single parents avoid eviction, provided job training for people trying to get back on their feet, and created a childcare program for parents working multiple jobs. But perhaps the most unexpected development was the relationship growing between Jake and Sarah. What had started as gratitude had slowly evolved into something deeper. They shared similar values, both understood the challenges of raising children, and both had learned that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose. One evening, as they watched Emma and baby David play together in William's spacious living room, Sarah asked Jake the question that had been on both their minds. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been at the diner that night? Jake considered this. Sometimes. But then I remember something my daughter said. She told me that heroes aren't special people, they're ordinary people who choose to do the right thing. I think what happened was supposed to happen. Fate. Maybe. Or maybe just proof that doing the right thing even when it's hard has a way of coming back to you. William, who had been pretending to read his newspaper, looked up with a smile. You know, Jake, I've been thinking about expanding the foundation. We could help single parents across the entire state, maybe even nationally. But we'd need someone to run it. Someone who understands what these families are going through. Jake looked at Sarah, who was grinning. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Harrison? I'm offering you a chance to save more lives. Just in a different way than you did at the diner. 1 year after the incident at Rosie's diner, Jake found himself standing in front of a crowd of over 200 people. He was being honored by the city as Citizen of the Year, but more importantly, he was announcing the launch of the Harrison Foundation's expanded programs. Emma sat in the front row, wearing a beautiful dress that Sarah had helped her pick out. Next to her sat William, holding baby David, who was babbling happily and trying to grab everything within reach. Sarah was backstage helping coordinate the event. A year ago, Jake began, his voice steady despite his nerves, I was a man who thought he was failing at the most important job in the world, being a father. I worked 2 jobs but still couldn't make ends meet. I was facing eviction, and I was scared that I couldn't protect my daughter from the harsh realities of the world. He paused, looking at Emma, who beamed at him with pride. That night at Rosie's diner, I wasn't thinking about being a hero. I was thinking about a young woman who was about to become a mother, just like my daughter might someday. I was thinking about how someone needed protection, and I was in a position to provide it. The audience was completely silent, hanging on his words. What I learned is that heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and choosing to act anyway. It's about recognizing that we're all connected, that someone else's child matters as much as our own child. Jake's voice grew stronger. The Harrison Foundation exists because we believe that everyone deserves a chance. Every parent trying to provide for their children deserves support. Every child deserves to feel safe and loved and hopeful about their future. He gestured toward the audience, where he could see faces of families the foundation had already helped. We're here today because one act of courage created a ripple effect. But the real heroes aren't people like me who make split-second decisions. The real heroes are the single mothers working 3 jobs to keep their families together. The real heroes are the fathers who choose to stay when things get difficult. The real heroes are all of you, doing whatever it takes to protect and provide for the people you love. The applause was thunderous. As Jake left the podium, he was approached by dozens of people wanting to shake his hand, to tell their own stories, to volunteer with the foundation. But the moment that mattered most came when Emma ran up and threw her arms around his waist. "Daddy, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Princess. Do you know why? Why? Because you taught me what real heroism looks like. Every day you trust me to take care of you. You believe in me even when I don't believe in myself. That's the bravest thing anyone can do." Sarah appeared beside them, having finished her backstage duties. "Ready to go home?" Jake looked around at the crowd of people. Some wealthy, some poor, all united by the belief that everyone deserves compassion and support. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that terrifying night in the diner to this moment of hope and possibility. "Yeah," he said, taking Emma's hand and offering his arm to Sarah, who was carrying baby David. "Let's go home." Jake Martinez stood in the backyard of their home, watching Emma, now 12, push 10-year-old David on the swing that had been his daughter's first discovery in their new house. Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing Sunday dinner for the extended family that had grown around them. The Harrison Foundation now operated in 12 states and had helped over 3,000 families. Jake served as its director, traveling occasionally to speak at events, but mostly working from his home office to ensure he never missed Emma's school plays or David's soccer games. Emma had grown into a confident, caring young woman who volunteered at the foundation's family events and tutored younger children in reading. She often talked about becoming a social worker so she could help families like theirs had once been. David, who called Jake Daddy Jake, had no memory of the dramatic circumstances that had brought them together. To him, Jake had always been there, reading bedtime stories, helping with homework, and cheering at every school event. William Harrison, now in his 70s, remained an active grandfather and foundation board chairman. He often joked that Jake's heroism had given him the 2 best gifts of his life, his daughter back and a son he never expected to have. Sarah and Jake had married 3 years after the diner incident, in a ceremony where Emma served as maid of honor and baby David as ring bearer. It wasn't a fairy tale romance but something better, a partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep understanding of what really mattered in life. As Jake watched his family, he often reflected on how one moment of courage had changed everything. But he had come to understand that the real miracle wasn't what happened in the diner that night. The real miracle was what happened every day after. The choice to build something good from something terrible, the decision to let love multiply instead of letting fear win. The phone rang inside and Sarah called out, "Jake? It's the mayor's office. They want you to speak at the police academy graduation." Jake smiled. Even now, 5 years later, people wanted to hear from the single dad who took a bullet to save a stranger. But Jake knew the truth, he wasn't special. He was just a man who had learned that the most important thing you can do in life is show up for the people who need you. "Tell them yes," he called back. "But only if they understand that the real heroes are the ones who choose love over fear, every single day." Emma looked up from the swing set. "What are you smiling about, Daddy?" "Just thinking about how lucky I am." "Because you're famous?" "No, Princess. Because I get to be your dad. Because I get to be part of this family. Because sometimes, when you do the right thing for the right reasons, life gives you more than you ever dreamed possible." Emma grinned and went back to pushing David on the swing. Their laughter filled the air, a sound that Jake never tired of hearing, the sound of children who felt safe, loved, and completely secure in the knowledge that someone would always be there to protect them. And in that moment, Jake Martinez, former mechanic, former night security guard, former struggling single father, knew that he was exactly who he was meant to be. A man who had learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the love you give and the lives you touch along the way. The hero's heart beats not for glory or recognition, but for the simple, powerful truth that we are all connected, and that sometimes, the greatest act of courage is simply deciding that someone else's life is worth saving, even when that someone is a complete stranger. Even when it means risking everything. Even when it changes your whole world.